Well, good morning, everyone. Last Friday, we talked about how God is just in judging Egypt for its sin because the Egyptians are sinners, like all human beings, and the wages of sin is death. We also saw that the Hebrews would have been shocked to find out that they were in just as much danger as the Egyptians from the 10th plague. But again, God is just. He makes no distinction based on race or gender or family or nationality. Everyone has sinned. Everyone deserves the punishment for those sins. And if someone doesn't take the punishment that our sins deserve, we must bear it. Yet before we go on to talk about how God took that punishment in the Passover, I want to bring up one more thing here. You see, at this point, our modern American sensibilities are often offended, or at least we know someone who's offended by the idea of a God who judges sin. And they say, why does God have to punish sin at all? I mean, he's loving, right? The God I believe in is a God of love. And so therefore, he shouldn't punish sin. I mean, as Voltaire put it, of course God will forgive me. That's his job. Yet two things are going on here when this happens. First, we have a culture that denies that sin even exists. And second, they deny that God should punish it. I mean, don't feel guilty about who you are or how you live. As Elsa sings, there's no right, no wrong, no rules for me. Yet that's just empty philosophy. And no one truly, really lives that way, or can at least fully live consistently by believing that, when it really comes down to it. I mean, take all the protests that are going on right now and anger against racism. If there is no right, no wrong, no rules from me, then why should anybody get mad when a race is oppressed? Okay, so if you're one of the ones who's getting oppressed, you would be mad, which makes sense. But why should anybody else be mad about it? If there is no right or wrong, then there's nothing wrong with that happening. So you shouldn't get mad about it. Only if we know there is sin do we really have reason and right to protest that someone is being mistreated based on their race. You see, we may not call it sin in our culture, but the protests show us that they truly believe that there is sin and that must be punished, no matter how much they try to convince themselves that there is no right, no wrong, no rules for me. Yet that's just half the issue. The other half of the issue is the objection that, oh, God is loving, so therefore he shouldn't punish sin. Again, as the French philosopher Voltaire put it, God's supposed to forgive me, that's his job. Many people today would have that kind of attitude, that God is loving and therefore he should just let it go and forgive us. Yes, God is loving and he is good, but he's also just. And again, when we really think about it, no one in our culture lives consistently thinking that wrongs should go unpunished and everyone should just be forgiven. No one lives that way. We can't live that way. I mean, think about it this way. We would not put up with any judge in our justice system who let wrongs and sins go unpunished. No one would look at that judge and say, oh, well, he's an all-loving judge, so it's okay for him to let that criminal go without punishing that sin. I mean, whenever wrongs happen, whenever we wrong someone else, we incur a debt to that person and a debt to society, and the scales must be balanced. Someone has to pay the debt. So if a civil judge in our government were to let murderers or rapists or thieves go without paying the debt, no one would accept it if we said, well, he's a loving judge, so it's okay. He lets them go because he's all love. No, we would cry out in outrage, and rightly so, because the debt must be paid. And if the debt is not paid by the criminal, the victims and society have to pay the debt. The victims pay the debt because they get no resolution. Society pays the debt because when people see that sins and crimes go unpunished, then more crimes and more sins happen because there's nothing to rein in people's desire to do things. That's why we always have the phrase, so-and-so must pay their debt to society. And we all believe that. So we would never put up with a judge who let people go without their crimes being punished. And if someone says, he's just a loving judge, so it's okay, we would not accept that as an excuse. Well, why would we expect the judge of the universe to be any different? Why would we expect a civil judge not to let people go and not to let crimes go unpunished. But the judge of the universe, oh, well, he should let crimes go unpunished. Yeah, he should. But not a civil judge. No. Well, that's not consistent at all, is it? You see, there is no such thing as a wrong, a crime, a sin that can go unpunished. God requires payment from all who have sinned, Egyptians, Hebrews, Americans alike. We are not the masters of our fate. We are not captains of our souls. God requires payment. Yet fortunately, that's not the end of the story. God also provides the payment for those who place their faith in him. So we'll look at that starting tomorrow. You guys think about that, and I'll see you tomorrow.